Thank you so much for coming. Welcome to the Philadelphia Podcast Meetup. I see a lot of new faces, so thank you for coming. So you guys know you're in 2424 Studios. This is a building where my company, Lighter Creative, where our offices are. Kiera works with me, and obviously my mom. We own a web design company. We do web design, graphic design, social media marketing, all sorts of digital media marketing. But we also own a platform called Better Than Success, where we have as a website, we have daily content every day that gives you tips to success and success hacks. And we also have a podcast. So hence why we have the Philadelphia Podcast Meetup. Talk about success, and I interview people and all sorts of good stuff. The big news about one of our interviewees, I don't know if you guys know, Q comes on the radio in the mornings. I mean, not on the radio, on Fox in the mornings. He does like entertainment news. Quincy Harris. So he just announced, not even a week ago, that he's going to get his own daytime talk show. I interviewed him about a month ago, and on the interview, he said, my goal was to get my own talk show. And then a month later, he announced he's going to have his own talk show. I know. I'm so proud of him.
You know, he's been working on that for a long time.
For years. For years.
Oh yeah, we talked about that a lot on the podcast.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I know. He just tagged me on it and was like, I called it on your show. I said, you certainly did.
That's a nice shot.
I know. So anyways, okay, I totally didn't want to go over there, but I'm just so proud of him. I wanted to announce it. But Joe is an original member of the Philly Podcast Meetup. He is an amazing dude. He also has the Mid-Atlantic Podcast Conference. That's in October, right? September.
Yes.
And it's just going to be an amazing event. I cannot wait. And he was awesome enough to agree to do this speech about podcasting. He has a couple of successful podcasts, so I'm super proud of him, and I know he's going to offer some really, really great information. So without further ado, Mr. Joe.
Yay!
How's everybody doing tonight? Doing good? Yeah.
Good.
I appreciate everybody taking the time to come out here tonight to learn about podcasting. How many of you have a podcast right now? Oh wow. Okay. How many want to have a podcast? Undecided? I'm sorry?
I want to be a speaker.
You want to be a speaker?
Yes.
Well,
Oh.
having a podcast is a great way to get better at talking and get talking, speaking, whichever adjective that you'd like to use. It actually helps a lot. But tonight specifically, I want to talk about growing your audience through guest experts. But before I get into that, I just want to go over real quick how I got to here. Nikki was so nice. And first off, give it up for Nikki because she pizza and beer and soda and the Yay, mommy! It's wonderful that we have a meetup here in Philadelphia, right in our backyard, that we can come and get to hang out and meet other podcasters. Because a lot of times when we have a hobby like this, it's great to get to meet other people. That's how we flourish. It's just like why I loved arcades. And I still love arcades, even though they kind of died in the 80s, because you got together in a community feel. So, a little bit about myself. Growing up, I wanted to be a child psychologist at the age of 6. It was a bit different than most people. The reason I talk about this is because this is what led me down the path to where I am today. I eventually found DJing. It was a lot of fun. I learned a ton of things. I got to use all my skills of like audio, video equipment, and music and stuff like that. And I wanted to be a DJ from around the same time as also being a child psychologist. I grew up in a family business, Carter Truck Service, 20 years working there. It was a $100 million enterprise, and I left to start my own adventure. Adventure is a key word because it was this music album from DJing that led me down that path. It's Disney music mashed up with hip hop instrumentals, and it tells the story of Up. If you recall, Carl and Ellie there, Doug, and I always forget his name. I can't think of his name. It's like not yeah. I can't think of his name.
Boy in the movie.
It's horrible. I should know his name. I mean, I did a whole album based around the movie. Anyway, this project took 3 months to do, and it led me down the path of podcasting. But at the same time, I was getting ready to leave my family's business to pursue my own passions and my own dreams. And it was on a plane to Disney World that I stumbled upon the idea of doing the Dreamers podcast, where I interview other dreamers, people who live their dreams to inspire other people. And basically, well, this is when we celebrated 1 year. We just passed 2 years a little while ago, 240 episodes, give or take. I think I have about 250 in the can. So we're rocking and rolling. It's going great. I've interviewed people from all around the world. And eventually it led me to, because I love podcasting so much, wanting to start my own conference with my conference and event planning background that I had from both DJing and from working in my family's business. So it just made perfect sense, and the Mid-Atlantic Podcast Conference was born. There's a lot more to the story, but I'm not going to bore you with the details. So, getting to, now you know about me, getting to, should you have guests on your show? Not every show is built to have guests, and sometimes you should, sometimes you shouldn't. In my own case, the way I found was having guests gave me connections to people from all around the world. It gave me the power to not have to come up with topics for every single episode, and it helps a lot with that content creation, because otherwise you have to come up with that content episode after episode after episode. Now what you'll find after a while, and what I found personally, is that you start to, I'm not a big fan of the word expert, right? I prefer the word professional, because professionals, like professional sports players, practice every single day to get better. They don't say, oh, I'm a professional sports player and I don't need to practice and I don't need to do anything. I just got to show up and play and I get paid lots of money and everybody wins. Well, hopefully we win. So what I did was, after a while, I found myself getting kind of bored, having all these guests on, and you know, while it's always interesting, and sometimes what I would think would be the most boring interview actually ends up being the most interesting interview, that people actually come back to me and say, hey, I love that interview that you did with so-and-so. And I was like, I didn't think anyone was going to resonate with this episode at all, because I was kind of stretching it to make it fit. Not to downplay their story or anything like that, but it's just, when you go from people that are doing grandiose things like flying to the moon to people that aren't doing grandiose things, it's, you know, sometimes you get lost in that monotony of creating content, and you think you know what people are going to respond to, and you have no idea. So putting it out there isn't such a bad idea. So you have to decide if having it is a good idea or not. Like I said, in my case, I started out with them. I still have them. Every single week I have an interview on my show, but now I have a pre-show where I talk for a half hour to an hour with a co-host of mine, Matt, who sits off camera. You never see him. He's my Robin to his Howard, and it just works. I write down topics, and I go through topics, experiences, customer service experiences, entrepreneur experiences, my own experiences, things that I'm dealing with and going through, the wins that I get, they're the ones that I share, and the fails, the things that don't work out the way I expect them to. So it kind of chronicles me, but at the same time, I still get to highlight somebody else in the world that's doing what they love to do. Excuse me. So, if you make that decision that yes, we're going to have guests on our show, we're going to make this fit, and we're going to make this work, what you need to do is make a list of guests that you would like to have on your show. And that was the first thing, one of the first, actually it was the first thing that I did on that plane ride to Florida, was, because I didn't have internet at the time on the plane, was make a list of all these people that I would like to have. Whether it was Will Wright, because he had a huge impact on changing my life, even though he'll probably never be on my show. Will, if you're watching, I'd love to have you on my show, but that's okay. To people that I knew that had stories and changes that they were going through, that I could bring them in and say, okay, let's make a story based around, you know what, you're 28 years old and you're going back to college, or you're going to college for the first time. Like that's an important thing. It may not be, when it comes to dreaming, it doesn't really matter. I know what I said earlier, but it doesn't really matter how big or small it is. It's just a matter that you're willing to take those steps. So, we made these stories based around what I had in front of me. You work with what you have. So you make that list, and then the next step is you need to start reaching out. Now, when it comes to reaching out, there's a ton of ways that you can do it. The ways that have worked for me is Twitter, because 140 characters, you're probably going to be, your message is probably going to be seen by the person you're tweeting to, assuming that they're not, they don't have a handler that's handling their Twitter following or whatever. It's a great opportunity. 140 characters. You send an email, probably not going to get opened up. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Depends on who you're sending the guest to. But the Twitter, they'll see it. It's just a matter of whether or not they reply to it. So having that really nice tweet that you can send out to people really helps. In fact, I just had somebody that I admire. I wrote to them. They wrote back to me in like 20 minutes. He's not going to be on my show, Jay, but he said at some point in the future when he has time, he would like to, because he quit his job. Emails. I don't know, has anybody seen what this video is from? About emails? You should look it up. I think it's called like Doxmas, Domics. I think it's Domics. Domics? Yeah, Domics. Like comics, but Domics. It's hilarious. Type in email and then Domics, like spelled like comics. It's hilarious. Replying to emails. So with emails, it's great. You should have an email formatted that you can send out, and a spot in it, obviously, so you can personalize it for why you want the person to be on the show. Make it kind of flattering. Make it kind of, more of a big deal than it necessarily may actually be. Because just because it's not a big deal to you, doesn't mean it's not a big deal to them. And also, it's as big of a deal as it can be. It's all about perception, and perception is reality and all that stuff. So make it sound good and grand, and also don't make it too long. If you make it too long, then people shut it out anyway. And I mean, who here likes to read long emails? No one's raising their hand. Yeah, I honestly, when you send me a long email, it's sitting in I'm in box 0. Is anybody else in box 0? No. Oh, that means you get your inbox down to 0 inbox, like no emails in your inbox.
I had 34,000.
Yeah, I'm too minimalist for that. I used to be like that. But then things, to me, started to fall through the cracks. So I was like, I'm going to get down to inbox 0 and use it as like a to-do list. And before I know it, I have 1 or 2 emails. But if your email's long, it's staying in that inbox for a little while because I am a slow reader. So once you get them, they reply back. Usually, if you get them on Twitter, they're going to just ask you, be like, hey, send me an email. Send them an email. Hopefully, they get back to you. You make that all happen. So then, ta-da, you have them on your show. It's awesome. It's great. You got to schedule with them. Usually, you Skype. There's a lot I could go into with all that. How to do these. Blab is another way of doing it. There's plenty of resources out there to tell you how to do that. But you have them on your show. But after you have them on your show, the episode probably doesn't come out right as soon as you do the interview. And as a tip, I would suggest not having it done the same week that it comes out. Try to batch it up a little bit. I think I have about 14 episodes batched in my queue. Sometimes you'll get people that complain, but as long as you let them know up front, like, hey, it's 3 or 4 months out, they're usually okay with that. And if they're not, sometimes I've bumped people up if they have launches or something like that. You can work with people, but you gotta have it because more than likely you're going to be like, oh, we'll just wait the last second. And then people will start canceling on you. And then once that happens, now you don't have any content. And if your show relies on having a guest, then you're stuck. You don't want to be stuck. You want to be in control of your show. So if anybody complains, just remind them, hey, there's plenty of TV shows out there, PBS or whatever, that are doing documentaries. And they might film an hour of your a film with you and use 30 seconds. And it might come out 2 years from now, if ever. Or you film an hour and nothing gets used. Who knows? It goes both ways. So you just have to be cognizant that when you have them on your show, you have to let them know up front, and then there's the follow through. So you want to have awesome follow through, and this is really where it's going to matter. When I got started, I thought, oh, if I just have the biggest names I could get on the show, then people will be searching for it, and then all of a sudden everybody will be like, oh man, I gotta get, it's gonna be awesome. Joe's gonna have all these big names, and people are gonna be searching them, and they're gonna come to his show because of the big names. Turns out that's not really the case at all. Time and time again, the biggest guests I've had on my show don't really follow through. So it's not that I didn't necessarily follow through by letting them know, but they don't necessarily follow through because they're too busy, or if in some cases, if they shared every show that they were on, every interview that they did, all they would be doing is sharing out other people's stuff, not their own. And it gets tough. So I understand both sides, so don't get offended if they don't. So what you need to do is reach out again. So you reach out to them. Sometimes it depends on the person. Like I try to reach out the day of, because I don't have a lot of time. But I know that there's shows that I'll reach out a week ahead of time, and then 3 days ahead of time. Sometimes it gets a little annoying. But the idea is that you're letting them know, hey, your show's coming up. You want to be, you would love for them to share it, and then we're going to go through how to go about doing that. So once you've made the commitment to reach out to them, you want to make it as easy as possible for them. So create social media posts for them in that email so that they can share it, so they don't have to think about it. I know even with myself, like when I'm on other people's shows, if they create the social media for me, it's a lot easier for me to go and share it. Now, I share it from my own blog as well. But if they write something or a tweet or something like that, then I can just throw that into my blog and it'll share that out and makes it that much quicker and that much easier, less thinking I have to do to help share it. Because I want to be helpful, but at the same time, there's only so much time to go around. And that's really the hard part. So making the social media post for them, you can also make it so that you can have it so they can click on it inside the email and it'll generate the tweet. You have to go and find out how to do all that. There's not enough time to explain all that, but that's something that you could look at doing. You could tweet at them once the episode comes out. If your blog or however you're sharing it out, you add their at Super Joe Pardo, all of a sudden they're getting a message that they can just hit the retweet button right in Twitter. Makes it super easy for them. Then you can also tag them in Facebook, so that again makes it super easy for them. Plus, if depending how their settings are, they can it'll automatically share out to their people as well because they're tagged in a post. All of a sudden, that's more eyes without them having to do anything. Oh, yes. I was trying to think of why I had this up on the screen. So the top secret. So the whole secret to making all this work, and like I said, there isn't always necessarily guests that are going to share out your show. Sometimes the guests that you think that won't share out your show will, and sometimes the ones that you thought won't. And sometimes the ones that you thought would be like, oh, even if they share it out, you thought, oh man, I'm gonna have a ton of downloads on this episode because this person has a huge following. Turns out, even if they share it, it doesn't work that way. And it boggles my mind. But at the end of the day, the big secret is if you want to get people to share your content, and the best way to utilize guest experts is you need to build relationships. That's it. This is all comes back to a relationship building tool. And the great thing about having guests on your show is that you have a reason to talk to somebody that would have no reason to talk to you otherwise. As in Nikki's case with the Quincy Adams. Would he have any reason to talk to you otherwise?
He's kind of different, but not as much as we had around that time.
Okay.
Podcast.
All right. So it's like, well, I have plenty of examples of people that I would have no reason to talk to or know otherwise, and I'm so thankful because I wouldn't even be here if that wasn't the case. to have those relationships and be able to have them from all around the world. You know, to be able to say, I know people from Singapore to Hawaii, like, not across the Pacific, but all the way around. Like, it's the amazingness of that, you know, when somebody mentions a place, they can be like, oh, well, I know 4 or 5 people that I could go stay at. You know, I could go hang out at their house or whatever. That means a lot to me because I love people and I love interaction. So you want to build relationships, like, but not like Squidward there. Mostly Patrick and SpongeBob. So yeah, does anybody have any questions?
Just one, we'll go way back to the beginning pretty much. When you make the initial contact, you said 20 person festival. If the person doesn't respond the first time, you go after them again, and how many times do you do it before you worry about making contact?
I think I've only maybe tweeted once at anybody, and the reason is because my show isn't so niche that I can be like, it's okay, you don't have to, like, it doesn't hurt my feelings, I'll move on to the next person.
Some people don't see their tweets, they just miss it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe up to 3 times. Give it like 2 weeks or something like that. I know I don't know if anybody else is like a Daniel Tosh fan, but he did his Twitter thing where he was called his block party, and he was inviting people onto his show via webcam to block them on Twitter because they were very annoying and would tweet at him a lot. And yeah, it was hilarious. I'm sorry.
I said that is such a Daniel Tosh.
Yes, and he was wearing I think it was like a Persian, like, flashy jacket thing or something, and he was just dancing the whole time. It was hilarious. So yeah, I mean, I guess if they don't want to talk to you, they'll just block you. You know, but you know, if you go back to the list and you build that list out of who would I want to have on as a guest, then it doesn't really matter. You know, you just move on to the next person. Because there's somebody that's going to. And to share a quick story about actually the first person that turned me down, aside from BJ, you're still on notice. He was supposed to be my first guest, and then 250 episodes later, he still hasn't been on my show. I actually called somebody who proved Stephen Hawking wrong on one of his theories, and he was a plumber. So I was like, oh, this is an amazing story. Like, I gotta have this guy on. I found his number because he was a professor. I found his number, I called, he answered. He let me talk for about 30 seconds before politely shooting me down. Of course, I was just getting started at the time, and like, whatever. But no, I have not come back around, and it doesn't matter because I have a long laundry list of people, and I find new people every single day that would be a perfect fit.
I actually have a story when we were launching our podcast. We made a nice list, and one of the first people I went after some guy I went to high school with, actually, and he's a successful entrepreneur. So I just knew, like, you on the show? Like, yeah, sure. He like stood me up twice, and I was going to have to be the first person on the show, and it's okay. I've had way better people on the show. We just like moved right past the list. I thought I'll be asking first because I thought it would be easy.
Yeah. But you persevered.
Bob, you were probably be bored anyway.
And that's the thing. So you know, you have to know how many people, excuse me, that you would want to go after, who you would want to go after, and then make that list so you can do it. And then you can build those relationships. And then, you know, you become Facebook friends, and you just become Blab friends. What's up, Eileen?
Do you use a scheduler to schedule those interviews?
That's a great question.
A lot of people use these tools you hear about, Calendly or
Doodle, schedule once, yeah. When I got started, I was like, oh, this is how you do it. This is what everybody else does. Let me set this up. And what I found was that there was people that I thought, like, I had them on the hook. I'm reeling them in. I send them the link to go schedule, you know, at the most convenient time for them. Thought I was doing the polite thing, and then there was a couple times where they just dropped off, and I'm like, oh, well, wait, what happened here? And then I was talking to somebody later about it, and they were like, well, it's kind of rude for you to, like, you're asking them to go and do something for you to schedule. And I'm like, but it's at their convenience.
Right.
Like it
So
wouldn't
they
make
don't
sense.
get it. In other words, they just don't get it.
Right, they don't. A lot of people don't, and that's okay. So what I do, and I should have probably put that in there, is I just say, could you shoot me 3 dates and times that work for you? And then if those 3 don't work out, then they send me 3 more, or 1 more, or something to that effect. But at least then I can make it work around, especially if it's somebody I really want to have on the show. Yeah, I mean, I would say that the best, the hardest thing about that also is if they're not in your same time zone. Like having people in Australia on my show, like it's tough because you gotta do the math, especially if you don't have the scheduling app. With the scheduling app, it makes it very easy. You know, it just tells you what time you want to pick, and then it does it. I'm sorry about the what? Okay. Oh, so with the fall. Sorry. Getting over it, trust me. I still got over it here. Just getting over it, trust me. So the follow through would be afterwards. It'd be like leading up to the episode coming out. But in the meantime, you could still, be in contact with the person. You know, suppose again, it goes back to building relationships. So. So you might, excuse me. You might want to. And I'm so good for so long too. Hold on, I have a call. I would say, you want to send that email before, like right before it comes out, or even just the day of or the day before, with all this stuff. Like, hey, can you share? Now it's a lot of work. So it depends on if you have a team of people that can do it, or if, like me personally, I'm not going to say that I do send out those emails because I don't. I tag people in Facebook and I share on Twitter with their name to make it easy to share. Just because I don't have time to write this big long email about how to share the show.
I do send those emails out. So after my guest is confirmed, I send a thank you email. The time that they're scheduled to come on there, whatever topic that we're trying to move on. So that is like kind of the day after confirmation. And then I normally do another one, I think 3 days before we're scheduled to record. And then that morning of, I just send them a text or some sort of really quick, something really quick, Facebook or whatever, that looking forward to our conversation at 9 a.m. So
What about your follow-up after, I think there was a time frame that you were talking about.
So after I send an email thanking them, it was awesome. And website link with everything that's going to be on there, and also give them some links that we can use. Yeah, right, on Facebook or whatever, but the day of the interview when it comes out, that Tuesday, I am blitzing on Twitter and Facebook, tagging them in either one, so, yeah.
And that's I'm sorry. That's a really good point though. Sending an email before, because you might also want to include your questions. I've only out of 250 interviews, I've only had maybe like 5 to 10 people ever ask like, what questions are you going to ask on the show? Like, for the most part, most people haven't asked that
I think
question.
that for me, what I've noticed is that newbies to be an interview ask good questions.
Yeah.
Seasoned guests, they can roll with punches like the other, so it's always like newbies. So I kind of get done there.
I would agree with that. And the other thing I would say with that is when you get started, the level of guests that you're having that can feel comfortable talking on a mic probably won't be the greatest. I know that early on I had a lot of editing that I felt I needed to do. And as time has gone on, I've brought in guests that are comfortable with talking. So I don't feel the need to edit the show like at all.
you actually kind of gave me a wake up call because I used to like edit the crap out of my show, like take out everything. Like, it would take me hours to edit. And then we had a conversation, and you were like, "Yo, no, don't. It's worthless to do all that." And now I just don't. It's better. Like I think I went back and listened to one of the early episodes, and it sounded so perfect that it wasn't natural.
Yep.
And now I just like, I listen, I mean, I'll take out like if somebody's coughing, like in the last episode, I think I had to take out like 2 parts, like the guy was coughing or like some sirens went by or something like that. But other than that, I don't, he definitely checked me on that, like, yo, you do not need to be doing that.
Well, the thing you can do is you can write down timestamps, like, and then edit backwards. So you can just edit out, like, hey, there was a big long pause, or we stopped because the dog started barking, or siren went by, or something. You know what I mean? Like, you could go back and edit those, like in minutes, and then leave the rest of it. Because, like we were saying earlier, like, if your show is only 30 minutes long anyway, it's not like you're asking for a ton of time commitment. If you get rid of all the oh, it went down by 3 minutes. Okay, but it took you how long to get that 3 minutes out of that show, and you're only asking for 30 minutes to begin with. It's not like it was an hour long, and we trimmed it down, now it's 20 minutes. That's the thing. I'm sorry, you had a question?
That's all right. I want to ask you a question, I guess the other bloggers as well. You're probably going to get into this in your presentation, but what are you using to do the recording? Are you using Skype or Lab, or what are you using? And then do you give, if it sounds like a rookie, do you give some hints or suggestions? Like some people, I did an interview with a guy, he didn't have a mic, he didn't even have the earbuds. And it's funny, I asked him, I don't know what he would do. And then you see some people on Black Box, well, they look like they're sitting underneath the table like this. Or in the dark, you know, you think, geez, somebody tell them to put a light on their face, you know. And so you can make instruction beforehand or suggestions.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea to have in your email, as far as like, hey, we record with Skype. What's your Skype email or your Skype address? If you use something like Ringer or Blab, like you need to know what that is. Usually Skype is pretty well adjusted, and in a worst case scenario, which I've had with some older people that we've had to interview, where they only wanted to do it via like the phone in their living room. You can have Skype. You can have a Skype phone number. So for like $20 a year or something, $30 a year, you can call them to that number. Or you could, it's like $60 total or $30 to receive calls from the phone number. So then they can call you at that number, and then you can record. I use Elmoto or a call recorder on Mac. Call recorder on Mac, Elmoto on PC.
So
There you go.
actually, the last talk that we had, Magic Pass, we talked about equipment. And one of the things we talked about is if you're going to do it over the phone, make sure you do Skype, because Skype uses the internet versus the copper line, so the quality is going to be better. And hopefully that person can be connected directly to, rather than using Wi-Fi, because if the Wi-Fi cuts out, like I actually did a call like that with somebody and we did Skype and they were on the Wi-Fi and it was a little glitchy, right? So if they can connect directly to Skype, then that's better.
Even
The
from
other
your
thing,
phone.
actually, something that we tried that failed miserably was we were like, okay, we're going all in on this podcast. We're going to buy a headset for people who don't, a $20 headset for people who don't have it, and send it to them and then pay for them to mail it back. So we did that. We sent it to the first guy. He completely just didn't. We didn't even end up interviewing him. So we had to hunt him down. We paid for the postage. Did we send him a package?
Like any shipping, the.
Right, you go in there and you
It's
just put it in
adventure
the
checks,
shipping
yeah.
thing. We were paying for everything. He finally sends the thing back and it's broken.
No.
Broken. So it was just like, the hell with that idea. we just get them in the office. If it's somebody that's really, I'll just make sure we do it like a Skype call or whatever. Well, I'll figure it out. I'm not even going to.
You gotta remember, like when you listen to the radio, people are just calling in from their cell phones.
Right.
And that's acceptable. I mean, that's multi-billion-dollar media companies, and it's acceptable for them to just pick up the phone and call. So I I mean, we as podcasters like the idea that we can get better sound quality and we can sound like we're in the same room and all that. Like, it's great, but at the end of the day, you got to get what you can get.
And you say you've done hundreds of them, right?
Yes.
And how many of those have failed for technical reasons? Probably very few.
I think 3.
Oh.
Yeah,
I shouldn't bring up this.
I think 3, and that was because my it wasn't even really my Mac's fault. It was Logitech's fault. I had the keyboard driver installed on my Mac, and if you have it installed, it's a real pain to get uninstalled. You can't just uninstall it. You have to actually go in and find where all these files are hidden in your Mac and eradicate every single one of them, or else it'll keep crashing over and over and over again. So yeah, I think it was 3 was the total. Yeah, and I just re-recorded with them.
Yeah.
You know, we just set up another date and did it. Like Blog Talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Blog Talk Radio, I mean, they've come a long way. It's people use it. The problem is both of you are on the phone, and you both sound like you're on the phone. So it's not like, oh, one person sounds like they're in a studio and the other person, oh, I'm phoning in. You know, there's no baseline for audio quality. They tried to make like an HD version. I don't know. I know for ease of use. I mean, Justin's shaking his head no. I think they canceled it shortly after bringing it to market. But yeah, it's not. I mean, I would look at something like a Podbean if you're looking for simplistic. Like, how do I just get this uploaded? Libsyn's pretty easy, depending
No, I
on.
don't think she was told, you were asking like freeconferencecall.com to record the actual call. I was actually having that idea, she told me, like, there are so many, I mean, Vlad is one of them, where we both are on and we can record, because the issue with doing a podcast via Skype, the reason why you have to use these very particular apps is because it doesn't record both sides of the audio.
Right.
So that's the whole, but if I am,
You don't have, so I would use Skype because of the quality.
no, but which her specific question is, if I
Free
call
conference
into for example, freeconferencecall.com,
Yeah.
I mean, I understand her question, and then we're
Yeah.
recording the actual call, it's gonna give me an MP3 file when
Right.
we're done. Could I theoretically use that as my podcast?
Oh,
Theoretically.
the answer is
Yeah,
yes.
that's actually
Good.
what Jay and them are doing. One of our clients, that's what they want to do. And I had a whole speech with them about quality, like, and they were like, we don't care.
Yeah.
We're still gonna do it. So here's the other side. Here's the other side of it. The argument is, like Joe said, listen, if radio is doing it, they're multi-million-dollar, then so can you. Like, it's not gonna stop it. But then the other argument is like John Lee Dumas, I don't know if you know, he's podcasting king. So he basically says his advice to podcasters is it's gotta be quality. If it's not quality, then go home. Go hard or go home. He's like, he does not, I mean, for his show, he's got a multi-million-dollar show. But he tells people, if when I call you, you don't have at least a $20 headset, then it's a wrap. And he recommends that everybody, you know, all his little podcast minions, you know, everybody who wants to be like him, the advice is Fire Nation. The advice is you and your listener have to be on a quality call. Because honestly, like when I first started out on a couple of podcasts ago, first I was doing it straight into my computer. And then I had a really crappy mic that my mom used. She donated it to me because she was like, this is crap. You want this?
No, you go Blue Yeti. The bitch is hard.
That's how hard I'm like.
It's hard.
Well, remember, she's recording it here, not in this room. But
Yeah.
I did one time and it was awful because it was all the acoustics. But even when I was doing it even when I wasn't, it was really bad quality. And a couple times you were like, the quality you couldn't even make it through it. Like she's a quality.
I think I am too. If I hear too much, for example, the interview that you did with Justin, I knew that going in, this is gonna be like Justin. It's Justin. Yes, I have to listen. He's this amazing graphic designer who works with some really high corporate clients, and he's just like so awesome. So we love him.
are going to be really good quality people and they don't, and vice versa. And how good somebody speaks publicly is totally independent in how good they are with their work. So like Justin is this guy Justin, he's actually my digital media mentor. He really kind of got me in the game. And he's one of my best friends. We literally can laugh and giggle like two girls on the phone all day, every day, talking about nothing above the link to like high level business and politics. And when he got to my house to interview, we're doing our normal Nikki Justin thing, laughing, joking, get the mic in front of me, he's like, hi, it's Justin. I'm like, yo, like, what the hell? Like, if you don't get some energy and life into you like we don't normally, but you never know. Like, that's not his thing. Like, he's not even on social media like that. He's just not into public speaking. As a kid, he had a stuttering problem, and he's learned how to fix it. But he just.
The point about call quality, I think that it's not, for me, it wasn't so much the quality of it, right? Like, was it crisp, was it clear? It was, am I straining to hear this person?
Right, the volume.
Which is so if you have and then that also is to your point about spending a whole bunch of time editing, because if you're gonna record the call and the volume is low, you have to go in and spend all this time editing to make it be loud enough for people to hear that it isn't even worth it from the beginning. So I think it's about where your preferences are in terms of spending your time. I think everybody here, like I probably have done like 7 episodes of my podcast. I just started listening, but I know my number one issue is sitting down to actually do the podcast. So I don't want to have to edit for an hour after I record the podcast and then worry about. I want to get it done and it's completely
In
done.
your first episode, you was editing a lot, weren't you?
I spent a lot of time, like my first 2 episodes,
Because I
and
know
now
it was
I'm
super
like,
perfect.
and now I'm just like, okay, great, this is awesome. And I think the other thing that has helped me to feel that way is being on Periscope or being on live streaming. And people are like, if you see some of the stuff, like you said, sometimes people are there with the lights and you're like, oh, that's acceptable. My podcast is perfectly acceptable. I can even see you. I have this live stream class where the person literally comes in every single week and it's just complete black screen. And it's like, why do you show up and then she'll talk and then no, somebody in the class is so weird. It's like she'll ask questions and everything, and you'll see her silhouette. Hi.
So I think it's like if you can get your audio quality to about 80%, the content will carry it the rest of the way. It doesn't have to be perfect, but there's definitely a difference, and you'll hear it. Like you can try the conference call thing, try it out, see if it's good enough. I mean, it might be good enough for what you're looking to do, or at least get you started. That's the important part, right? Because really, like you could take your phone and you could start recording a podcast right here with your phone, like, and that's it. And then you upload it to your computer. You don't really have to edit it, but you could add in, an intro and an outro and a break in the middle. Like you could do all that stuff, or go at your own pace and learn from there. But really, it comes down to content is king, and if the content isn't very good, it doesn't matter if the show sounds like $1 million. It's not worth listening to, because you're not producing like music at that point. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing.
I produce music, so I know a bit about audio, but I just have a podcast again, so the audio quality is good.
Well, then, do you have a microphone?
Yes.
So okay, so
I was thinking about more like the interview, like making it easy for them too. Like that's pretty exit. Do they have some input headphones for the primary?
Can I ask you a question, Angelina? What's holding you back from starting your podcast today? So we
There you go.
you should be not.
Just solve all the problems.
Right?
She said, by the weekend.
get better as you do it. You can't get better though if you don't start. I think Dave Jackson, he's one of my podcasting mentors, he said on one of his episodes, you can't improve it if you don't start. So
Yep.
just get started. Even if you don't put it out there, even if you just record it, just for yourself, like, I want to see how this will be. For me to actually record it. And, you know, and if it's good enough, use it.
Yeah, and that's great that you have a background in producing music because that helps like a lot. That's like my DJ background helped me get started. I mean, from the idea of having the Dreamers podcast on a plane to 2 weeks later, I was gone. I was done. Or started, I should say, not done. I was started. So 2 weeks after, and that was without any podcasting experience other than being on like 8 interviews prior for the Adventuratorium album. Like that's where it got the ball rolling. So yeah, so you got to get started. And again, it doesn't matter what you have available. You got to use what you have available to you. And if you have that equipment, I would suggest going the Skype route. And then you can have a phone number that people can call in if they don't have Skype. But I would try to push them like, hey, use it on your phone. And then one of the other tips is if they are going to use their headphones, get them to get like a clip. So when they get like crazy and talking, it doesn't start rubbing up against their collar. So you don't hear like in the mic.
The other thing that Matthew said is you can always just make sure the person uses the iPhone mic. That's a better quality.
Right.
If they're
Definitely.
on the phone.
Yeah, because I was gonna say earlier when you guys were talking about Skype, there's an app for iPhone.
Yep.
Someone wanted to interview me, they only want to use Skype, which I don't put on my computer. I just don't like Skype. And then I was like, well, wait, let me try the app, and it worked perfectly.
Yep.
You know, she recorded. I don't know if the Skype app on the phone.
No, it won't.
But as an interviewee, it was perfect. So you can tell your interviewees, and I think they have Frank here too. So you just download that.
You said your iPhone mic or your iPhone like the phone?
Right.
Give a headphone.
But that's what I was talking about. You might want to get them to clip it because what happens is like they start talking and the mic starts like going crazy and then it starts rubbing up against the collar and then you get that feedback in the mic. So it's not bad. It does sound really good. It's just you gotta watch like they move around a lot when you talk. So was there any other questions? Anybody have? So the podcast in Atlantic is September 9th and 10th, and actually Dave Jackson will be in the house. He'll be part of a panel. So, you know, you should go check it out. It's right now, actually, if you go to theatlanticpodcast.com/discount, you get 10% off. It's usually $100 right now till August 2nd. Then it goes up to $150 to the door until September. So right now it's $90 with that discount. And that discount will be up till July 5th at like midnight or something, or July 4th at midnight. You know, July 5th it ends. Yeah. I never know how to explain that properly.
I just say 11:59.
11:59. Yeah, I know. Isn't that a lot easier?
That clarifies it in my head.
Because 12 a.m. is actually the next day, even though people say it.
11:59 July 4th.
Yeah, it'll end. And then you can get to all my stuff at superjoepardo.com. I've written 2 books and 240 episodes of the Dreamers podcast. You get the books there. You can get to the podcast conference there. You can get to, I didn't put it on there, but me and my wife just launched something called Moby Mail, where you can, it's kind of like those monthly subscription services, but the idea is that you fill up an envelope with motivational and inspirational letters and like trinkets, whether it's like those wristbands or buttons or pins, and you send it off to Moby Mail, and then we send it to another Moby Mail member, and then you get a letter from somebody else, so you don't know who you're going to get or what you're going to get, and it's like a swap. It's spelled MOBY, mail.com. So it's pretty awesome. Yeah, this is a neat little service we came up with. I needed a reason, I needed an excuse to go check my new P.O. box that I just got. And this is what we came up with. So, yeah, it's pretty neat.